So I'm giving you a day 4 of the mental health protocol I put my brother on and possible progress. I'm just trying to look at the bright side of an event that happened today. Um, I did live stream me going to the hospital to pick him up. Okay. I also want to notice I'm wearing my moon phase necklace that was gifted to me a few years ago. It is the new moon. Now keep this in mind. I think this is something one of the things that I'm trying to make connections with. Um it is very interesting when certain things happen during certain moon phases. And I know this sounds woo woo, but the reason why I'm saying this is because when my brother disappeared, this last time in September of last year, it was during a moon phase. Okay. And today is a moon phase, as in one of the four. Okay. It is new moon today. And in September, I'm trying to remember if it was a full moon. I think it was a full moon. And he did something that he did today. Um he has paranoid schizophrenia. Okay, so I'm just going to put it out there because the other day I'll talk about this towards the end, but in September he took himself to the hospital. And what I mean by that is that he called 911 and took himself to the hospital because he had pains. And that sounds pretty reasonable, right? Okay. Um I've always known that he has a low tolerance for pain, or now that I'm thinking about it, he's always had like clues of psychosis going on with him since he was a teenager. And he's always had what we thought was a low tolerance for pain. Okay. All right. So he had some pains, and this was in September. So he took himself to the hospital, and this is back where he was before in the other state. And he has short-term memory, for which he was hiding. I didn't realize that he had short-term memory literally maybe a good month and a half ago. Like how bad it really was. Okay? So he took himself to the hospital in September. He got to the hospital. He did not know how to get back to where his caregivers were. He didn't know how to get back. He was afraid to call them. He was afraid, even though he had a phone, he was afraid to call me. And he ended up being missing for 3 weeks. Okay? He ended up being missing for 3 weeks. And I put out a missing persons report. I had to travel like as many times as I traveled, like at least 100 miles, both like one way to this other town, because we weren't living in the same town or the same state at the time, to find him. Okay. And knowing him, I knew that he was probably in one of a few places. And I think I've mentioned maybe some of this before. If not, please check out my Substack, because that's kind of where I'm going to put a lot of the more, I don't want to say graphic, but more detailed information about my brother's struggle with mental illness. And I think it's important, more of us need to be talking about this. Okay, the more we're talking about it, maybe more of us can come up with more solutions and share out possible things that can help each other. So I'm documenting this not just for the sake of trying to help my brother, but maybe it can help somebody else that you know. And once I stumbled into this world of being a caregiver, because I always knew he was mentally ill, being in the realm of his care it's such an eye opener at this point. And like I said, I'm trying to document times, situations, occurrences, things of that nature. Can he adjust? Can he find a way to help himself? Those kind of things right now. Um, I I don't think he's ever had the opportunity to teach himself to be better, to fight these like demons, basically, to fight these demons. And so I documented that it was a moon phase when he disappeared. He disappeared for like 3 weeks, and I was tracking him. I would travel out of state to go find him and come back and go to work the next day. And um, when I finally found him, or when he finally was clear enough to reach out to me, he did it twice. Once he called me in the middle of the night on a Saturday night. I was asleep. He called me and he was saying, "Come get me." And I was like, I wish I could. It's going to take 2 hours in the dark, in the middle of the night, crossing state lines, okay, in the deep south. And I tried to explain it to him how serious that was for me to try to travel to go find him in the middle of, like, he didn't even know where he was. That's how scary it was. And I gave him the phone number to his caregivers, and I thought he was going to call them that first time. I really thought he was going to do it. He didn't. He was too afraid. And so and I went back to sleep. Like, seriously, I really didn't think it was that serious, like his situation, because he's been hiding it this whole time. So I gave him the number, call so and so. They can get you in 20 minutes. Call me back or whatever. And when you get there, and all the things, right? I didn't think that it was that serious. So I gave him the number. I didn't hear anything. In fact, I called the caregivers that next day, say, "Hey, did he come back?" And they were like, "No." And that made me like, ugh, so for yeah, those 3 weeks were very, very scary. But at the same time, knowing how close, like, I can sense that he was still with us in this realm physically, that he wasn't gone, you know. So he called me a second time, and from there he he was where I thought he was, because when I, put in the police report, I was like, "Go here, go here, go here." Unfortunately, in that town, they have a problem with low, like, staff on the police department. So unless he was committing a crime or something, they weren't going to try to look for him. Okay. Um, so he finally reached out to me again. Somehow he got a second phone. Somehow he was able to either ask somebody to help him, like, figure out how to video call me. And that's what he did. So he video called me like a week and a half later on a Sunday, on a day that I had a show, because I'm a musician. And he called me that morning, and based on the background, I was like, exactly where I thought he would be, one of the three places. And I had him on the phone for 6 hours because I couldn't cancel that show. I was under contract, and had it not been a show, I would have gone, because I was already going back and forth for 3 weeks, going in and out of state. Sometimes, like I said, it might have been like a Monday or a Tuesday. Right after work, I would head straight on over there. It would take 2 hours to get there, do some business to look for him, and then come back. It would take 2 hours to get back, and I would come back here and go to sleep for like 2-3 hours and go to work the next day. That's how serious it was. Okay. Um, because we had lost him before, unfortunately. So I was not going to lose the trail. So when he called on that day of my show, I had him on the phone for 6 hours. I told him, luckily he had a phone charger. Again, I don't know how he got a second phone or whatever. I was like, keep it charged. Go to this place, plug it in. keep it charged, stay with me. Do not like, and I tried to instruct him to go to certain places, certain locations where he would be safe. I did my show. I even let him watch me do the show. And what I was going to do, I tried to get him to a shelter that night, and then I was going to drive over to get him that next morning. And just as I was finishing up my show, because he had been on the call with me for 6 hours, right? And I was finishing up and packing up and all this other stuff, we lose connection. I'm mortified, because I had him so far, coached him into getting into the line to the shelter, this particular shelter, and stay in line. Don't get out of line. Don't get out of line. Stay in the line. I lose connection with him. And then he calls me back, and I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. So I knew I was going to try to go back over there again. I was going to call out sick from work and just go back over there and go to where I saw him last on camera. And then he did call me again that night, and he got out of that line. Okay. I had to watch him sleep on the street that night on the camera. Okay. So that's how serious this is. And the next day, or actually, yeah, the next day, I told him, go to this location and I'm coming to get you. So he went there. I met up with him. He needed to be what is called stabilization. I thought his caregivers were going to get take him back in, but they were kind of humming and hawing this whole time, because I was still trying to be in communication with them. They were humming and hawing, and it was, by the time I called them, I was like, hey, so I got him, we're gonna come back over, and they were like, yeah, so yeah, we're not gonna take him. He left the program. I was like, he has a short-term memory. He does not remember how to get back there, so he got kicked out because they assumed that he left the program. So now he's homeless for real, for real. So I had to take him to a clinic. Luckily, they kept him for a few days. That was still in the other state, though. Okay. I still had to go to work. So I went to work, dropped him off. He tried to pull some funny business, because I get another thing is that he is super fearful when he's not medicated. So I was not even an hour out on the highway that the doctor called me and said, oh, he says that he's fine and this and that. And I was like, no, he's not. No, he's not. Please don't believe him. He's lying to you. So she got off the phone and talked to him, and then she called me right back. She's like, yeah, so we're going to keep him for a few days. I was like, yeah, that's what I thought. Because he knows how to, he's charming too. Because he almost got me that week. So I went into work. He calls me first thing in the morning, and he's saying, hey, they're letting me go. They're saying I can come live with you in Atlanta. I live in Atlanta. And I was like, oh, what? Like, wait, let me talk to a doctor. See, I've learned that now when he's hospitalized, I need to talk to a doctor and nobody else, not him. When he's in the hospital, I need to talk to a doctor. So I was like, so I'm going to call the doctor later. So that's what I told him. And I didn't hear anything from the rest of the day, because he was lying. He was trying to get me to say that I was going to come get him, so he would go tell them that he can be let go so he can get out. But he needed stabilization. Okay. So yeah, he did the few days. It was almost a week. So I was like, every day I would call the doctor and I would say, hey, he needs as much time as possible. He's been missing for like almost 3 weeks. He needs to get back on his medications and stuff. And they were like, okay, yeah, we understand. And I was actually trying to get him back to my parents, because there's more family there. And trying to look for housing, apartments, and all this other stuff, because more of our family lives there. And I literally maybe have one or two cousins, distant ones, very distant ones, that might live here, My one cousin, first cousin that did live here, she has moved to St. Thomas with her family. So it's just like it would be just me. And it's not like I don't want the responsibility. It would just be only me that he would be able to like depend on for care. And so he kept telling them like he's gonna live with his sister in Atlanta and his sister in Atlanta. And again, I was looking for housing where my parents live. Okay, back in that state, because this is important for me to keep saying this, because healthcare is different in different states. Okay, so the easiest route would have been for him to go back to where we grew up in that same state. That would have been the fastest and easiest way. And he kept telling the doctors, "Oh, she's gonna come. We're gonna go live in Atlanta, live in Atlanta." And I was like, "Okay." So when he was finally being, actually, he got released a day before I thought he was gonna get released. So again, I had to leave work. No, they called me in the middle of the day. I couldn't just leave work because I'm a teacher, y'all. So they called me in the middle of the day. So they're like, "Yeah, we're gonna release him today, and like, you can you come and pick him up in an hour?" I was like, "I live 2-3 hours away from you. Please don't let him out." um, because my next step was to take him to a hospital because he was in a clinic. Okay. So I had to, hot footed over there, and we drove to the hospital, the mental hospital. I was hoping that he would get a 30-day evaluation because he's done this, gone through this before. So I admitted him into that hospital and hoping that he would get the 30 days because he needed that. Because again, I was still hoping that he would go back to his caregivers too. So I was, entertaining all these options. So I was calling them and saying he's getting the 30 days, and they were just like, "Well, he's no longer invited to this program, blah blah blah." And so yeah, I was highly upset. So I'm calling now the other town for a similar program that he was in where he was. There's backlogs, as in waiting list. And I'm just like, you got to be kidding me. But America is in a mental health care crisis. So I was still hoping on those 30 days because at the very worst case scenario, I could have him, live close to me in Georgia. I was fearful of having him in Atlanta because this city is like 3-4 times larger than where he was. Okay. I didn't even mean to tell this story right now, but here I am telling this story. So he I kept telling him though, coaching him, because legally as the adult, he can say he wants to stay. I can't tell the doctors that he needs to stay, even though we all know he needs to stay, right? Even him. So, but if there's an overflow of things and he seems kind of okay and he can mask a lot of what he's actually doing and feeling, and he's really good at doing that, come to find out he was only there for 2 weeks. And I was like, oh. So that again put me in like not panic mode, but like emergency mode yet again, because I didn't have housing for him. My home is being renovated right now, and I don't have a place for him to sleep. I barely have a place for me to sleep sometimes based on what I'm working on. And help, like medicine, healthcare, all the things, it was just really, really difficult. Uh Calling while still going to work, mind you, y'all. Okay? Um, to find something. So I was just like, you know what? Why am I calling these agencies and they're having all these waiting lists and all this and that, and you got to put in an application and wait 2 months and maybe and we'll see kind of thing. I was like, you know what? I've seen him in various states of his mental illness, and for the most part, I haven't seen anything too like dangerous, at least around me. So And meanwhile, yes, both my parents, especially my father, was very concerned about my safety at this point. Because they're both my parents. They see things on the news like, oh, so and so gets by their relative. There's mental illness. Like, so you see that stuff on the news all the time, and so my dad was very concerned because he was like, I'm the only girl in the family, so he's like, that kind of thing. So, um, but I know my brother, okay, and I just trust the process here. So I got him over here. I got him into one of those extended stay hotels while I went looking for apartments that were safe, apartments that were close to me, apartments that had like looked centrally located everything, so that if something happened, I would literally be 20 minutes, if that, away or less. And I would have to just again trust the process of being able to afford this and a mortgage at the same time, um, and navigate getting more of his medications. And oh yeah, I forgot this part. He lost his ID, so we're still waiting from getting his birth certificate because talking to my mom, like we have copies, but some places they don't take copies anymore. They take either certified copies, like with the stamp, or the original. And when my brother moved away from my parents, he got his original, and that's long since been lost. Okay. And of course, like I said, he also lost his ID. So, in order to get a lot of other things done, we needed his ID. We already had his social security number. He had it. He is on Medicaid, and Medicare. Um, yes, it is called a ukulele. It's not my favorite instrument. This is a delay pedal for which I do play guitar. I'm just saying. So, um, he he basically was erased. Like he had no identification. He had mentally memorized his ID number from his driver's license. He memorized his Medicare number, um, and memorized his Medicaid number, like from the previous state, and that was helpful. And I was keeping track, and as much as I could, take pictures of anything and everything. So we finally got his one of his ID. So I can tell that story another day, but that was also some stuff. Okay, so I had him in an extended stay hotel for almost a couple more weeks. So this was all in October. Finally got in an apartment. Luckily, or for whatever reason, I tapped into my home equity. Like I already had it, because I'm renovating, right? So I'm using part of that, and I got a raise this school year. I even got a bonus that sadly is gone. It makes me sad. It's like whatever, but I mean, would I do it all over again? Yeah, I would definitely do it all over again because you do that for your family who is in need, who is like in danger, right? So you do that. He was getting some medications from when he was released out of the hospital. And so we were dealing with that. Thank goodness for telemedicine. I was able to finagle some more medications for a while through October and November and part of December. So I was able to get some more medications until we can get his Social Security secured with me as his payee person, and trying to get at least see a doctor or have a regular doctor. Um, and again, I did not know how bad his short term memory was still until something happened while we now have an apartment for him. And again, people ask me, why can't he just live with you, even if you're renovating? He has a short term memory. Like if the water is cut off in certain parts of the house, or the electricity is cut off in certain parts of the house, and he doesn't remember that, he's like, that's not going to be helpful. Okay. So if there's wires, like I'm afraid he might hurt himself. Quite honestly, I'm gonna just be honest. Okay. Um, it's safer there and more people. And I'm at work, so that would be another thing. So if I'm at work and he's like touching exposed wires and all of this other kind of rigmarole, then that's not good. So at least he has an apartment to where he can call maintenance and this, that, and the other, that kind of thing. And then he feels as though he has his own place again, because that's something he had kept talking about. Like, I want my own apartment again. I want my own apartment again. So I was like, well, let me just honor his request, kind of thing, at least for a year or so, and we'll see what happens. So this is where we are right now. Okay. So yeah, so December, finally got his Social Security secured with me. And I can tell you a whole nother story on that too. Um, got to see a doctor once or twice, and that's where again I started to see other things, other parts of him that I never had seen before, because he had been masking around me, and more of his mental illness symptoms are starting to show up in front of other people, and I'm like, I've never seen this before from him. And like I said, as a caregiver, you finally get a chance to see what's actually happening, because he was masking. Number one, masking meaning pretending like he's okay when he's really not. And he, like, yeah, he was basically masking and pretending like everything's fine when it wasn't. And so you can only do that for so long, right? Unless you are around somebody every day and you start to see them and you start to know who they really are. And you're like, wait, interesting. So yeah, so he started unmasking once he got the apartment, and again, I got a chance to see a lot of what was really going on. He was also put on new medication, different from what he was been on ever before. And I was hoping that this would be like the thing, like this is the thing. And yes, in a lot of ways, he is more like himself now. Um, but let's see, January came around, and he got some disappointing news, and had, I would call, a relapse of some things, and he tried to pull some shenanigans. Um, but now living in a different town where we do actually care about mental health issues, we don't put people behind bars and all this other stuff. When things happen like that, they just go find him help. So he tried to pull something there. He got upset about something else, and he'll just throw things away. That's what happened to his phone. He got mad. He threw his phone that I was paying the bill for, just threw it away. And so he didn't have a phone for almost a month. But then he forgot that he threw away his phone and kept asking me for a phone. I was like, I can't afford a phone right now. I literally just paid your phone bill, and then you threw it away the next day. So I can't afford a new phone. So he was out without a phone for at least a month. And that's kind of where I was sleeping overnight over there, just to see more of his habits and to see more of what's going on. Um, and yeah, it got me more information, right? And more research. And now seeing how serious and how subtly serious it is, because he turns on a dime, his behavior and his mood, right? Um, but again, I've never felt in danger, though. Even at his worst, like, this is how I would explain it. It's like when he's manic, it's like he's drunk, but annoying and annoying. And I'm like, I've been around, as a musician, I've been around enough drunk people and high people on drugs and stuff to be able to handle myself. So if anything, he'll do something. He's done like maybe a couple of things inappropriately in public spaces, but other than that, that's pretty much the worst I've seen. But then he'll do other things like what he did today. Back to the moon phase. So today, this morning, I've been, like, as you can already, tell if you can go back to my last few videos over the past almost 4 days, 5 days, I've made these smoothies, and I've been monitoring even more closely his medication intake. Like, I would literally, on my way to work, go over there and make sure he took his morning medication and his evening medication. Okay, myself. And also adding in, like I said, I've been talking about the L-theanine and now these smoothies for protein. So yesterday I should have known. Like, he was talking a lot about his old, where he used to live and how the doctors, he liked them better. And he'd been asking me about my doctor since he had moved here. But I was like, well, my doctors are across town. And my doctors, like, like, I think where we are right now, there's at least two, three hospitals right here. And they're just as good. Okay. Kind of thing. And so, yeah, but he had mentioned going back to his old town to those doctors. And I'm like, that's like 100 miles away and you're fine. Okay. You're okay physically because his last appointment, bill of health, physically doing good. Mental health though, been trying to get him to go to therapy. He at first he said yes, and then one time we did try to go, he had an anxiety attack and he didn't make it. So yeah, he's pretty healthy. Like, for the most part, he's healthy physically. But yesterday afternoon, he just kept talking about like those doctors are better, and I want to go to, like, get a like a head scan and all this other stuff. Like, I should have known. Yeah, because this morning I thought he went for an early morning walk when I didn't see him, but he did take his morning medication though. Before, he had been forgetting. He took his medication this morning. I just didn't see him. And then I get to work and I start getting these texts about, like, intake and being in the ER. And I'm like, what is happening? Because I did eventually decide to go ahead and try to switch his doctors. Again, you've seen in those videos, the other ones, where um, we're gonna, go to Emory now. We're gonna, like, I just need to find time to set up the appointments and try to figure out, because the last time, remember, I just said last time I did try to take him to the doctor, he had an anxiety attack and he barely made it in the door to the doctor's office. And I'm like, I can't waste a day leaving work, taking you to the doctor just so that you can have an anxiety attack and not actually go. Just being honest. Let's being real. Okay. And so he apparently today did what he did in his old town to disappear. He took himself to the hospital. Not just any hospital. He took himself to Emory, the hospital he keeps telling me he wants to go to, even though there's two other hospitals in between here and Emory. He called he called the ambulance to do that. And so I'm getting texts from the ER from Emory. I'm thinking, I was like, wait a minute, I'm not at the ER, because I'm at work. Like, what's happening? So yeah, he checked himself into the ER, complaining about his foot. And then he also told them that he wanted a head scan. I'm sorry. So the thing is, it makes me feel bad that he's wasting resources like this when he's physically okay. And as I said in the video earlier this afternoon, he is actually having a mental health situation that he needs a therapist for, that he's saying he doesn't want to go to. But yet he'll call 911 to complain about his toe hurting and wants to go sit in the ER all day. But then when I take him to the doctor's office and we sit in the waiting room, then he's panicking. So yeah, I had some big feelings throughout the day. And I even text him. He didn't know. See, even right now, he doesn't even know any of this stuff. Like, because of his short-term memory, He's given me access to all this stuff, but he forgets that he's given me access to all this stuff. So I'm still trying to work on getting some paperwork signed so that I can really have more access to his care in case of an emergency, because he panics when we're just trying to get regular care. But yet he's okay calling 911 and sitting in the emergency room all day. Okay. Um yeah, I'm a little bitter today because right now I should be like, I'm trying to get ready to go to bed tonight. I got paperwork to finish for my work, and this is the irritable part of mental illness, where you're trying to be a caregiver, you're trying to be reasonable with somebody who can't be reasonable, you know? And it sucks for me. So, I can't be reasonable with somebody who can't be reasonable. And I can't tell them, like, look, I can take you to the doctor, just say so. In fact, I even said that. It's like, let me know if you need to go to the doctor, and I'll set up a doctor's appointment. And he's like, okay, fine. But yeah. So, yeah, so I will say this is a kind of a blessing in disguise, because I do have access to his care, to his like medical records digitally, and he forgets. So he thinks he's hiding all this stuff from me. I already know, like, he got a head scan because I just checked it online. I just checked it. Now, the thing that we've been trying to work on getting, maybe I can actually now get to it with him. So I'm trying to now make sure I email some other of the doctors there, because I was setting up an account for him for Emory already. It was just a matter of me sitting down and actually doing it, but he's kind of expedited the process. Apparently now he has had an official visit there. Um, and I'm going to try to send some correspondence. I'm trying to actually upload his release records from the other city, stating his diagnosis. So that's the thing. It's like, I've talked to his other doctor. She made me mad because I sent her a message about his medication and how we kind of want to move over to injections. And her response 3 weeks later was, "Oh, I see that he's not taking his medication." I was like, "Ma'am, who it took everything in me not to cuss on this email." So I was like, "I'm the one giving him his medication. I know he's getting it. I'm handing it to him and he's swallowing it and he's drinking the water down. It's me. Okay? So don't play with me." So I don't know if digitally she just doesn't see it, but I'm just like, I'm giving it to him. So I don't know what you are seeing on the screen on the other side. So that's one reason why I want another doctor anyway. But we kind of want to move to injections because of the fact that he has a short-term memory. We can manage once a month, but twice a day, every day, that's kind of hard for him right now. Okay, so that's kind of where we are right now, and that's why I'm trying to, with at least the nutrition, keep him more in his executive state where he can be focused, even if he is having an episode, for which again it seemed like today he was having. So when I picked him up, I'm gonna just be honest. I talked it out to myself in on my way over there on screen, so you can again see that video. So when I picked him up, I just didn't say anything to him. I did ask him if he had his ID on him. I don't know if he actually did or not. Who knows? You know, because I was going to take him to the Notary Republic. Because that's what that was what I was saying on that video. It's like, well, it sounds like, because I was already going to try to plan it this weekend to just take him to a notary to get this paperwork signed. Because again, trying to get his care or whatever. Because he kept asking about it. So that's what I'm saying. I should have known he was going to pull something. And yeah, he pulled it. And so, yeah, we drove back, and I just made it very painfully clear how long of a drive it really is in rush hour traffic in Atlanta. Because he thinks that everywhere is walkable, like where he used to live. It's like, it's not. It's not. So when you don't believe me, when I keep telling you Emory is across town, it really is. And it took an hour and a half to get 4 miles. Yeah, it really did. Will he remember? Who knows? I don't know. So that was me being a little petty. And so I, made his tea for tomorrow. Hopefully he drinks it. We'll see. Had him take his medication this afternoon, and I came back over here, and here I am. So yeah, I didn't mean for this video to be this long, but day 4, I don't know if he's drinking that smoothie or not today, this afternoon. He drank half of it yesterday, the other one, and so um, I need him to be drinking these smoothies. I need him to be doing that. uh, And so that's the thing. So like once people's in mental illness, when they start thinking that they're feeling better, they stop their routines that are making them feel better, like taking their medication or eating healthy. Okay. So that's where we are right now. And I did, this morning, yeah, this is very interesting. So yeah, watch the last 3 videos that I did today. Like seriously. This is what it's like to be a caregiver. So I started off in the morning being all helpful, hopeful, and like, oh, see, he's doing good things. And the next thing, as soon as I get to work, I get these texts, and I'm like, what is going on? And then I text him, and I realize, oh, he's in the emergency room. That's what he did. And so all day I'm thinking, what am I gonna do? And then he finally calls me at the end of the day. See, that's how I know. He knows when I get off work. So he called me to go pick him up from the hospital towards the end of the day when he knew I was getting off work. Yeah. So yeah, that's where we are. I mean, in a way, it is kind of progress, but I'm gonna need more. We'll work on it. That's all I can say on that. And like I said, I do feel bad that he's wasting resources like this. And I try to tell him that it's like you only dial 911 when you think you're going to die in the next 10 minutes. Your foot hurting is not dying. Okay. All right. So like and subscribe. I hope you enjoyed that. It was story time, y'all. Maybe I needed to get that off my chest on the new moon. And so yes, new moon. Fresh starts, new changes. Hopefully this is getting out of his system, because now that I have digital access to his medical records, next time if he tries to pull this again, they will know he is mentally ill and that maybe he needs his injections instead of taking pills. And then maybe they'll actually give it to him. This might be a blessing in disguise. Okay? New moon. Happy new moon. Okay? So I'm going to meditate, go cleanse my body and whatnot, get ready for some deep manifestations, because maybe I needed to get this off my chest so that I can be able to usher him into a new sense of wellness in his life and let go of these old things as far as like destructive to himself and all those things. Okay. All right. I really do need to go. All right. So I think it's, yeah. But yeah, please like and subscribe. This is not for the faint of heart. I promise you. And I've only scratched the surface, honey. Not for the faint of heart. But I'm willing to stick with it, because again, I say this, everybody deserves to be well. Everybody deserves to be healthy, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically. Everybody deserves this. And if you don't know what you don't know, and that's where he is right now. He doesn't know what he doesn't know. And I'm trying to get him more into knowing more about his illness instead of just suffering from it. Okay. All right. Yes, I know I keep saying I'm going to leave, but all right. So with that, I say take care. Happy new moon. Be well.